Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Boursa Kuwait, we are delighted to welcome you to this accelerating fireside chat on women's economic empowerment, a cornerstone of our corporate sustainability vision that embraces the power of financial literacy and gender diversity. As proud supporters of the United Nations Women Empowerment Principles, we have been unwavering advocates for gender equality and financial literacy since our inception. This year, we proudly celebrate our 7th International Women's Day bell ringing ceremony, amplifying our steadfast dedication to this pivotal cause on a global scale. Without further ado, it is my absolute honor to present Her Excellency, Ms. Anne Coiston, the European Union's ambassador to the State of Kuwait. With over 2 decades of diplomatic prowess, she stands as the EU's first woman ambassador to Kuwait. And we are privileged to have her grace our gathering today. Welcome to Boursa Kuwait, Your Excellency. So, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for joining us today in this fireside chat at the Kuwait Stock Exchange. First of all, many thanks to Kuwait Stock Exchange for organizing this encounter and for hosting us for today's exchange on diversity, inclusion, and on environmental, social, and governance more broadly. It is evident that the actions of large companies have significant impacts on the lives of citizens in Kuwait, the European Union, and around the world. And this is why, in 2022, the European Commission adopted a proposal for a directive on corporate sustainability due diligence. The directive represents a significant step towards fostering sustainable corporate behavior, ensuring that companies are accountable for their impact on society and environment. The inclusion and representation of women in the workforce is also an area where the private sector plays an essential role. And this is something that I can see in Kuwait, where its vibrant private sector is leading the way. We at the European Union acknowledge that it is crucial to recognize women as pivotal catalysts for progress and transformation. Women's economic empowerment, including women's representation in the corporate boards, is an important step in that direction. While I acknowledge that there is still considerable progress to be made, I am confident to say that the European Union is adopting comprehensive policies and legislation to accelerate women's economic empowerment. And here I have some examples. For instance, the European Parliament's recent approval of the Women on Boards Directive in 2022 underscores our commitment to gender diversity and inclusion in corporate leadership. This directive mandates that major publicly listed companies in the European Union ensure that by mid-2026, women hold at least 40% of senior positions. The European Union also adopted Work-Life Balance Directive, a new law which aims to improve families' access to family leave and flexible work arrangements. It seeks to better support a work-life balance for parents and carers and encourage more equal sharing of parental leave between men and women who often carry the biggest burden of childcare. Building on these steps, the European Union has set a new goal for Europe: cut the gender employment gap in half by the end of the decade. To address pay inequalities, the European Union adopted a European Directive for Pay Transparency. It is built on 2 simple principles, notably equal pay for equal work and transparency to ensure employers treat women and men fairly. The European Union also adopted 6 directives on binding policies covering equality between women and men in the workplace, in self-employment, in access to goods and services, in social security, in pregnancy, maternity and family-related leave, and flexible working arrangements for parents and carers. In that line, women's empowerment is one of the priority areas of collaboration between the European Union and Kuwait. Since the opening of the European Union Delegation in 2019, we have worked extensively with the Kuwaiti government, private sector, and civil society on women's political, economic, and social empowerment, which has resulted in a series of flagship projects and activities which we are proud of. So, just in the way of examples, let me mention some cooperation projects. For instance, in 2021, we organized a training for female candidates running for the National Assembly elections. In 2022, we co-hosted a ceremony marking the fact that several leading Kuwaiti companies joined the UN Women's Empowerment Principles. And then last year, in 2023, we partnered with Kuwait University in organizing a policy paper competition on the role of women in environmental policies in Kuwait. The same year, we were also proud to send a group of leading Kuwaiti women for various sectors in a visit to the European Union institutions in Brussels. Naturally, all the above remains work in progress, and the European Union delegation remains open and available for similar collaborations with private sector companies in the Kuwaiti market. The European Union is eager to learn from your experiences and success stories, and is also ready to share our practices and know-how. I hope you will enjoy the discussion we have today with Mrs. Hewdige Nuyens, Chair of European Women on Boards, who came all the way from Brussels to share her experience and exchange on best practices. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your thoughtful insights. I'm delighted to introduce Ms. Hewdige Nuyens for the fireside chat moderated by Mrs. Dalal Al-Dosari, Deputy General Manager of Investor Relations at Gulf Bank. Ms. Nuyens is the chair of the European Women on Board and leads the International Banking Federation and has over 30 years in banking and finance. Her impressive career included roles such as the head of Group Prudential Affairs at PNB Paribas and Chief Risk Officer at ABN AMRO. A devoted advocate for gender diversity, Ms. Nuyens was Businesswoman of the Year in 1999 and has mentored countless women. Join me in welcoming Ms. Hewdige Nuyens and Mrs. Dalal Dosari.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our fireside chat discussion today. We are honored to welcome our esteemed guest speaker, Ms. Hewdige Nuyens, the chair of European Women on Board, to kindly share with us her experiences in many disciplines, one of which is women empowerment and diversity. Ms. Hewdige, allow me to start with my first question, which is the buzzword, diversity. So we see a lot of emphasis recently on diversity and women leadership in different degrees, one of which is the United Nations SDG 5, which is related to gender diversity and women empowerment. So is this just a buzzword? That's my first question. Or how important is diversity for organizations?
Thank you so much, Dalan, and thank you so much for the Kuwaiti Stock Exchange for inviting us. It's a great, great honor. And I would say diversity is part of the world, actually. It's what we are. It's what we all are in this room. And of course, the biggest known diversity that we are talking about is gender diversity, because women happen to be more than half of society, but it is only one of the components. I talk about diversity every day. It's diversity of culture, diversity of language. I know many of you were born or know different languages, have heritage in different countries. It's about diversity of skills. It's the diversity of origin, education. So diversity is the buzzword, but not the only one. The most important is adding diversity with inclusion. Because it's not only to invite you at this table, it's also the chance to be heard, the chance to be included. And it means that leadership of companies is going to change, because it's much more complicated, much more interesting as well to lead a diverse group of people. And so diversity is the start. Excellent leadership will make that you as a leader will be able to be more competitive, more profitable, and more sustainable. So yes, it's a buzzword much larger than gender, and the inclusion and excellent leadership will make the difference.
So with the new age of digital transformation, AI, changes in new cultural changes, basically. So do you think the expectations of societies are different now to see more diversity in leadership? And how can organizations provide that and adapt to these changes and new expectations from societies?
Yes, I think it's an excellent question. And when we talk about digital, and we have many ladies and gentlemen in the room who are looking at digital, we actually are in a complete new world. Really a complete new world. We've seen all the changes in digital. It means that now it doesn't matter whether you're here or in Brussels or in Australia. With digital, you are everywhere. It also means that we can create a new bias in the world, because if digital and AI is mainly created by a select club of wizards, be it man, be it white, whatever, you could create a bias in that new world. So it's extremely important that all of us, we embrace digital. I talk with my new friend ChatGPT every day. It never complains. It is always there at my service. So you can all use it. If you don't like ChatGPT, you have other ones. So all the leads in this room, with the digital world, you have access to infinite intelligence, new networks. So I would say it's extremely important that we really make sure that all the ladies and the talented women get that access to digital, that we also make digital and AI world women-friendly. Friendly to the youth, friendly to the mental health problems that it can embrace. So every new technology will come with pros and cons, and it's all our responsibility to make sure that we give access to all and that we prevent potential harm to come.
Talking about digital transformation and data. So what gets measured gets done. So I know the organization, the non-profit organization that you chair, which is European Women on Board, issues an index to measure gender diversity and women representation in approximately 700 listed European companies, which is a lot. Can you tell us more about this index? What are you measuring? And how can data help organizations to promote for women inclusion and leadership in these organizations?
Yes, so as European Women on Boards, we've been working a lot with the European Union on this. And we have a special agency at European level that is following the numbers. But they are aggregating the numbers at country level. And we experienced that it's much better to go at the level of company. So company by company, so that you can really list and show what is happening in each company. We follow the number of women on boards. We follow the number of women in executive leadership, but we also follow the key functions. How many female CEOs, how many female chairs. And that has led to really very interesting findings that we could see that even in Europe, with a quite nice average, the difference between countries is huge. With Italy, France, over 30%, 45. In Estonia and some other countries, we are at about 10. And then you look at the company level, even with an average of 45, you still have companies in Italy with only men. Not only men, only Italian men. Only Italian men from some universities. Even in your country, like Finland, such an advanced countries, you have top companies with only Finnish men from the same university, the same age. So it means that publishing the numbers, you all know it, we are at the stock exchange, publishing numbers is key.
So within that index, I was reading about it. It's very, very interesting. And I saw that you're emphasizing on quota, which is another buzzword, if I would call it. And I saw that the European Union plans by 2026 to make it mandatory as a quota for female representation in management. And allow me to read that from the extract, is at least 40% of non-executive supervisory board members must be women, or supervisory and executive board must consist of an average of 33% women. So just to give you perspective about Kuwait, within the banking sector, the Central Bank of Kuwait issues statistics back in December 2022. So women represent 35% of the workforce, and only 20% 6% are in managerial positions. So it seems that we're hovering around this 30 to 40% limit, if I could call it. First of all, what are your views on quota? And my second question is, why the 40%?
Yes, so quota is a very, very sensitive word. So I don't use it anymore. So that's how we women try to be flexible. So now I only talk about targets. And you have to know that the Women on Board Directive, it was called the Sleeping Beauty in Brussels, because that directive has been blocked for 10 years. So 10 years in the making, the European Parliament approved it, but there was so much backlash and a protest against that some people thought you will never be able to make it. And we continued to advocate and to lobby. So the Women on Board Directive is very much a compromise. It's as many things in life, you need to convince the different parties around the table. And the compromise was, it will be a target. Each company needs to put a target in place, and you need to have a very transparent procedure and select the best candidate. And then when you have equal candidates, and it happens that you have underrepresented sex, you have to choose the best candidate from that part that is less represented. Why 40%? Because we want to protect equally men and women. So the directive says that you should have at least 40% women and at least 40% men. Because in some companies in Europe, you now have 60% women on boards. And that's the maximum now. You cannot go beyond. Why 40%? Because as you might know, board mandates are often for a couple of years. And so if you have like 5 or 6 mandates, you can very often, by one people joining or leaving, fall beyond or below 50. So 50% would not be workable. So 40% is actually a very good target. And we know that whenever you hit 30%, you really have inclusion. So 40% is a nice target at the level of the board. And each company now needs to have a plan in place, needs to publish the progress, the numbers, and we as an organization, we follow up on that.
So I hope we can follow suit. At least we start from that point in our regions. You work in different markets and you have many years of expertise. You work with the private and public sector, different regions. In your opinion, what are the most common challenges and opportunities that organizations face to include women in the C-suite and the boards?
Yes, so it all starts with education. And there we can see in Kuwait, you are really very, very well advanced with very talented women. So women eager, ready, you have that already. With many women, like many men, having studied in different places. This is an excellent starting point. I can also see that women enter the workforce. So you start and you are there to give and to share your skills. And then there are a few roadblocks, like I had as well. First child, actually, the man you marry, that's the first very important decision. The man you marry, but that you might not change at this point. But, well, the man you marry, and then the fact that you have children or not. And this is a false choice. Because we all, as a society, we need families able to combine both. So it's a common challenge. Not only for us as women, for men in society, for leaders of the country, how to enable a society, how to enable companies that combine both. And so that means we do, as an organization, really help and encourage corporates to find a way and also to ask women to come up with proposals. How can we make your life more easy? And COVID has helped us in a way. Because all at once, remote was possible. So I think that's a big, big thing. Digital also is a big, big enabler. But so, few roadblocks, first child, the family, I consider it as a common challenge. Because if you don't allow this, you will have dropping birth rates everywhere. And that will be a problem for major economies. And then you have 2 trainings that we give us at EWAP, how to get to the C-suite, executive roles, how to get to the board. And there we very much facilitate how to brand yourself, how to engage with top leadership, how to actually acquire those skills that you all have to elevate yourself at some point, to really see how can I get at that executive level, what role can I play? And it's not about you, it is about how you can serve your company, how you can serve your country, adding the skills that only you have.
It's very insightful. And do you see similarities or differences between regions that you have worked with and different companies in these challenges?
Yes, of course, culture plays a big role. But actually, not different in my country than in yours. I was the first girl in my family to really work full-time with a baby. And I was asked many times, are you going to continue to work? And I was the first to be in an executive role. So I was challenged a lot. And it was thanks to my husband and a lot of people helping me, also me asking for help, that I was able to do so. So cultural change is actually something that you see all over the world. And I think it's just a matter of where are you? Are you willing? Do you like it? I mean, a career is something you have to choose. There is always a consequence. I only have 24 hours, as all of us. So it's about what are the choices you can make. The only thing I can say is, if not for you, being in a network, being in an organization, helping each other, also helping have male allies in the room, this is actually what has helped me a lot. And so I would say education first, the personal choices you want to make, and then network. Find allies, find friends, and use the energy around you.
So you've been a leader in many organizations, talking about this and fighting and having to be the first at everything. How do you find that rewarding as a woman, being a leader and going against the odds? Do you find that personally rewarding?
Yes, of course. Because if we can all change just a little bit, if we can only change and move that stone a little bit, that's extremely rewarding. And I would also say that we have half of society. And I think that because indeed we have motherhood, and because indeed we have so many other kinds of world that we represent, we are in a unique position to actually bring something. When I was a little girl, I was the only one who was really able to manage conflicts, because we had so many kids at home. Conflicts was a daily issue. And I was the oldest one of the oldest, and I had to solve this. So conflict management, be there at the table, the agility, the complexity, the volatility that we have in society, that we all face, this is something where your skills will be utmost important. So it's not only a matter of I like it, I think we should do it, I feel entitled to do it, it's a mission in my life, and so I enjoy it every day.
Great to hear. We have a full house today, full of young ladies. I think it's best that I stop my questions now and maybe move to the audience if you have any questions. We have a mic here to pass on.
Can go ahead. Yeah. So the question is on, numbers don't lie, and I'm big up being that. So you mentioned it's good to have the 40%, the quota, but how about good for the company?
So it's good to have the quota, the number of women on board or on the C-suite, but how is it good for the business of the company?
So, excellent question. I'm in banking, and I think I've told it to some others. In Europe, they've done twice scientific research to check the profitability and the sustainability of banks. And they checked all the systemic banks and the level just beyond. They could evidence that banks with an all-male board were both more risky and less profitable. The worst kind of combination you can have, especially at the stock exchange. So now it is part of the supervisory remit of the European Central Bank. Not only gender is a first lens. As I said, they look for skills around the table, they look for education. So it is considered that good governance at the board is good for the companies. But why is it not always the case? Because it's actually more easy to lead a couple of people that think the same. So in terms of leadership, in terms of tradition of how many countries, many corporates have excelled by having a very strong and united culture. The problem is the world has changed. The world is so more complex, so more changing, rapidly changing, that now you need a much wider variety around the table, and that requires a specific decision at the top level, top stakeholders, to say we need this not for today, but to be relevant tomorrow.
Okay, my question comes more in a form of advice, considering your immense experience. So I'm also in international banking, and I've recently moved to a job more towards the C-suite level. So very often I find myself in this different organization that I recently moved to. A lady, like for example yesterday, so we were having a big meeting, probably 30 other people in the room, and I looked around and I realized I was the only female in the room, which is great and I love it. But what kind of advice would you give when you find yourself, the only female in the room? What kind of advice do you give? I think it's motivating, and I think it provides a lot of inspiration to the future generation. But for a person in that situation.
Yes, I've been in that case many, many times, fortunately less and less. But so, you're the only lady in the room. It gives you 3 seconds advantage. That means everyone would have seen you. In terms of personal branding, very good. So what I did when I was much younger is try to observe how things were happening. Everyone would know me, but I didn't know a lot about the culture. How are things happening? Especially whenever you will move to a next level, there will be different rules. So learn from it, listen from it. And my success has always been listen, learn, take all the things I like, and for the other things, do it my way. But you need to blend in your personality, what you want yourself, and then try to see what happens. What is also very important in most companies, the board or the committee is only part of the story. It's very important that you try to find a way to engage relationship with others around the table and find common ground apart from gender. Because gender is one lens, but you might find a person in the room who has the same education, who has the same interest. So yes. And that means create allyships around the table and make sure that when you speak, you are heard. Make sure that when you speak, you have an ally that will actually relate to you and will also enhance your message. Be sure to understand when to speak, how to speak, and how you can actually create impact. But remember, you have 3 seconds advantage.
You mentioned a lot of it also comes naturally as women. I don't mean to be more, lenient towards women, but a lot of these things are like senses that female have, creating alliances. And so I think we already have more than 3 seconds hands up and advantage. But thank you very much. Thank you.
So,
Hello. What's the most effective strategies that you believe will promote women's leadership, in your opinion?
Yes, as many things in life, it's push and pull. Like I heard, bottom up and top down. So usually the best possible start is that there is at least an awareness that we need at the top of the company all talents. It's not so complicated, but it's really important that belief is really there. We need all talent. If we engage talented women, it's a pity to lose them. It's a pity not to have them at all levels. So that kind of top-level engagement is the first. Then count the numbers, as May is saying. really have it in your tables. Who is there? What is the promotion? What is the talent? Send talented women to external universities. Really engage and help them. And then it's the other way around. The talented women themselves try to figure out what is my best way. Because it's your career, not my career, your choice. But try to make this choice more easy. Try to ask help from others. In the beginning of my career, I thought I had to do it all by myself. That's how I was raised. And at some point, it no longer works. If you want to combine, if you want to move to other things, you will have to ask help, a mentor, a coach, something that is going to help. And what I also learned is you cannot just do more and more and more. If you want, I always challenge women, if you want to have the biggest possible impact in your life, you will have to let go other things. So I'm perhaps good at some things, and I'm good at other things that I've just let go. You cannot do everything, and you cannot be at home and at work. So you try to do the best. So I would say women are much more ambitious than men because they want to have it all. It's not possible. So you will have to make choices, but I would say try, and that's actually the stock exchange. It's life. You have to maximize and balance conflicting things. And it will be your choice to make the best of it. So top down, bottom up, and then really the advice I can give, make the smartest kind of choice and ask any possible help that you can have.
Thank you.
We can pass it on. So, thinking about here, wrapping all the diversity focus going about the genders. The like we know there are so many others, so diversity, but about the so what about the diversity project for brain? The attitude is how do you see that playing and what's your take about that?
Yes, you're very right. And at European Women on Boards, when I became the chair, we set 4 strategies, 4 objectives. The first was a talent pool of 1,000 women. Convince 1,000 women to say, I'm ready, I'm eager. And in that first objective, we said at least 20% should come from underrepresented groups. So to make sure that we do not create a new elite of white female from highly educated backgrounds. So really looking for women of color, different education backgrounds, and make sure that we are accessible and representative of all talent. We have the EU directive with the second objective. Again, make sure that it is happening in all countries, working together with organizations in all countries in Europe. And we specifically partnered with organizations that are actually working for women of color. So we partner with an organization in the UK that is only developing and helping women of color access board positions. And in the last bucket of my objective is working together with as many companies, executive search, but last but not least, male allies. Because we shouldn't only work for women. The most important group as well, and its hidden talent, is male allies. So you're totally right. We really make sure that we address talent as a whole. And a lot of things that you do to unlock female talent can also be used to unlock groups that are traditionally less represented. In my board, in the European Women on Boards, we have 40% men. That was done in 2 years' time, from 0 to 40. And we have 2 women of color.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you so much for the session. It was quite valuable. I kept taking notes on my phone. I love that you started with the utilization of digitization and AI into DEI. And actually, one of the things that we're doing at Zain is we're trying to integrate AI into the DEI agenda. Obviously, we're very aware that it's a double-edged sword because AI can be quite biased itself. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how to mitigate that as we implement it within our project.
Yes, and therefore you're so right in saying this. It's really important not only to talk about more women in decision-making positions, it's also important to have more women in science, more women in digital, in STEM, and to really include women in that field. So I can't try enough to also help, because we have female engineers in this room. We have statisticians and mathematicians. So to find ways to actually include and convince women to be active in that role. And I have one advice or one tip to really make this happen. When I talk to women, only very few are interested in AI for AI, technology for technology. But they are most interested to know how to make the planet more sustainable, how to create better education for all. And AI is just a tool. So if we want to include more women on the field, we have to change the way we talk about it. And so I think that will be the only way. So I would say engage, embrace it, use it, also keep talking about it. And actually, it's also by using our network and by being vocal about some of the biases that you can create change. For example, in the US, at some point, it was clear that when you were asking a credit card as a woman, the algorithm was biased. If you were asking the credit card changing your name to a man, you could get a higher. And that was such a fuss in the media that it changed. So it's also using our power of representation, addressing this, that can make change happen. But the first thing is embrace technology. Try to see how you can use it. And I also said it, try to see how you can use AI and those tools to increase your own visibility. A lot of women don't like to change their LinkedIn, but with AI, you can do it so easily. In 30 minutes, you have a complete new profile. So I would say embrace it and don't hesitate to use your voice if you see bias, but don't do it on your own. Do it with others.
If we can talk about your personal branding and being visible. I mean, probably a lot of women share that, and we talked about this yesterday. They do not like to brag about what they're doing and their accomplishment. And you said that's totally not true. Do not leave it to others to decide what you are capable of or who are you. What advice you would give our ladies here in the audience?
Yes, and I've had many discussions about that, and that's also from my own youth. I was not supposed to say how intelligent I was, and so that's the whole thing about how you present yourself. But now, for me, it's the other way around. I'm asked every single week to recommend names of bright, talented women for a position. I cannot take my phone and call 1 million people. That's not possible. So the only thing I have is digital, is AI, is my network. So I need to be able to look in just 30 minutes who is actually potential candidate with this background. You have a few keywords. And so if you don't tell me what you have to give, what you can do, how am I supposed to know? So sometimes I have to work 4 hours at night to find you. Make my life more easy. Make the life of all those CEOs, those executive search looking for talent. So why would you hide your talent? So I try to turn it around. Help us be a better company. Help us find the best talent. It's not about you. It's not about bragging you. It's about tell me how you can contribute to a better company, a better world. So don't brag, but just share where you are. And if you find it difficult, ask your best friend AI, you can talk to that machine, and they will come up with, it's very simple. I need to know, what are your skills? What kind of industries have you worked in? What kind of geographies do you know? And what kind of contribution do you like to do? So talk to the machine, kind of projects you have done, and they will come up with the very easy thing is, how I contribute is, what I like to do is, it's your best friend. It's not about you. It's about the rest of the planet who would love to have your services in their company.
I have a lot of questions.
We have few male allies sitting with us here in the audience. What advice would you give them? How can they contribute more into supporting their female colleagues, their wives, their partners? How can they help?
Yes, so actually, we are not in a black and white society about the women being the good ones and the men being the bad ones. They're not at all. It's much more nuanced than that. Of course, you have underrepresentations, but a lot of men are willing to help. They do not always know how. So I think what the best thing that we can do is have a dialogue. Like in many things in life, have a dialogue. And many men that I meet that have a wife that is working, that have daughters that are educated and start to work, only then start to hear the stories. So we are now in a new situation where many men have a spouse that is working, daughters that try to combine and have a first. So that kind of stories is so important because you hear it from another angle. So male allyships has a lot of things, because I do lobbying all the time, is find ways to communicate and find ways to make it easy for the other person to help you. So be precise. Try to see how we have a common goal. So, for example, if in a company we see that there is less performance, that we lose talent, how can we make that something as a help? How can we include it in some of the messages of the CEO that really diversity is important? So it's about creating those little hints and little changes to make it clear that when the CEO is speaking, that diversity is part of the topic. And then also very simple things, being a mentor, sponsoring a program for female empowerment. So male allyships can come in very, very common forms, but we have to try to make it something that is also easy for the other part, just as we ask that things are accommodated to make it more easy for us.
Any more questions? Great. We come to an end of our discussion. Today, I would like to thank you, Ms. Hewdige, for your insightful contributions. Today, I would like to thank our esteemed Ambassador of the EU to the State of Kuwait, Ms. Anna Koistinen, for offering this opportunity and important engagement under the umbrella of the EU. And I would like to thank Boursa Kuwait for hosting this event and always being the frontier organization in promoting best practices. I hope we carry forward the spirit of the discussion we have today in creating thriving cultures in our organizations, regardless of gender, and lead with a purpose. So thank you very much.